Guess I'll just start from the beginning. Well, not the actual beginning, not the moment that bore Stockholm, but the first clear memory shaken loose when I dared to go exploring. With great reluctance, I was encouraged to rampage the hidden caverns of my memory. My own mind sequestered the details I avoided in order to maintain a functioning day-to-day. Every crevice, allegedly, held the key to some great liberation, or at least that was what was sold to me. So I did what they said. I'm still not glad that we did, though. But this was the first recollection my mind permitted. It was a needlessly long bathroom. Sterile, with a countertop running the entire length, but with a single sink. A typical tub and shower combo hid behind a slightly opaque and patterned shower liner. In it stood myself, and mounds of billowing steam spilling over in the poorly ventilated room. The steam and curtain acted as culprits in concert, obstructing my view, but only partially. Beyond the distortion, his silhouette paced just outside the door. The surveillance did not upset in, perhaps, the way it should have. Of course, now I know why. But even in the moment, it was all so serene, somehow. But he broke rhythm. The pacing stopped and he breached the doorway. I pretended not to notice, but kept him in closer consideration as I continued the routine. He hoisted himself on the counter. There he sat, back against the opposing wall of this bizarre corridor. The movement, well, lack thereof, made me uneasy. A maintained distance suggested a degree of restraint, and his ever-morphing intent continued to elude me. Nerves never eroded to fear, though they had plenty of reason to. The involuntary intoxication blanketed the vague familiarity and lulled me into complacency. It's funny to me to think there is ever such a recipe that would strip me of obstinance. Standing ovation to those who orchestrated such conditions. And though it snuffed the fighting flame in me, the same could not be said for the quiet curiosity that would unravel it all. So, under the steam and flickering fluorescent assault, I turned to investigate. The faucet ceased with a ghastly moan. Residual drips pattered. The rusted hooks scraped the tension rod, and I stepped onto the thin and useless bath mat. But when I finally allowed my eyes to survey where he ought to be, I was met with empty space. I half-hustled to the doorway. Scanning the barren studio, I wondered if he was ever there at all. He left a parting gift of clean and folded clothes on the mattress. I wasn't crazy. He had been there. But then he was gone. I stumbled back through the bathroom. Fraught by lightheadedness, the edges of my vision began to blur. The escalated heart rate stole my breath, and I labored to stand upright. Recovering my balance, my nails dug at the laminate around the sink. Slowly, my eyes met my reflection in the scratched and stainless steel mirror. My features were indistinct, but there. And recognizable. I knew my own form. And it didn't match the name I had been given. My name gave me the same prick of curiosity that the man in the mist gave. But my reflection, I knew. I started to distinguish what was known based on feelings of familiarity and what was new from feelings of gnawing interest. But as I sorted out the distortion, the more clear things got, the more he became less known. And that's who he is to me now. Distant, benign, faceless even. Regardless of the memories recovered, the stories read, my own words heard and written, he grows less defined. His lines fade into the silhouette and his shadow grows darker. He's not a man anymore. He's just a bad dream. a vague nightmare from a lifetime ago and a few faded scars. But if you, like the doctors, insist, I can resculpt him to satisfy idle curiosity. It just takes me a minute. There's a clock. A floor-to-ceiling window with privacy glass. The wood floors are a lighter color. Oak, maybe? I don't know. I don't know much about interior design elements. The nights were cold, but during the day, the sun shone through in distinct beams. The light fractured and fell as single colors across the floor. But through the air, the beams themselves, well, they were just light. These bright bands serve as a spotlight for the dust particles waltzing through the air. Though they danced, there was no music. No sound at all, really. Except for the clock. You know the type, the older analog clocks. Fascinating piece of technology. All those gears conspiring among each other, and their master plan determines the basis in which we root all of our reality. That face, cold and unsusceptible to flaw, would tell you when it is. I came to trust that face more than my own. I thought those gears were incapable of a lie, as they certainly did not have an agenda. And I was right. I didn't have to worry about the face. But those hands, like all others I have known, could harm. They clicked with metronomic synchronicity. Soothing, if it behaved. But the faulty structure struggled at 8:43 as the hands negotiated passing space. The count would flicker. Then there was pain, dull and all over until my faculties could isolate each area. A stiff neck encouraged paralysis, but the splitting headache demanded reposition. So I sat up. I shoved my excessive bedhead out of my eyes, only to be blinded by searing daylight magnified through the glass. I rubbed the back of my neck while my eyes adjusted. With my head bowed, I studied my clothes. Well, calling them my is a bit misleading. They were clothes I was wearing, but the first of a long string of foreign artifacts deployed for my confusion. A bulky men's undershirt tangled with the pants' waistband in an uncoordinated and restraining fashion. What was once white dulled into a concerning yellow through means I did not care to wonder about. My free hand grazed the faded embalming material of the oversized sweatpants. This drab backdrop emphasized the brilliance glinting off of the polished cross dangling around my neck. Instinctually, I twirled the cross between my thumb and forefinger in the first dichotomous moment of recognition. "Good morning." His gruff voice startled me. I refocused on the man sitting just off the foot of the mattress. His amber eyes ignited to match the deep rust of neatly coiffed hair. A groomed 5 o'clock shadow contoured his chiseled jaw and framed a delicate cupid's bow. I didn't know why, but I couldn't look away, though I wanted to. "How are you feeling?" he followed up. Uh, where am I? I slurred elongated words. "How are you feeling?" "What is this?" I mustered the demand. A weak query that was met with apathetic silence. I swallowed a dry gulp that sliced my throat as it went down. Thirsty. He stood. My eyes followed him to a pair of adjacent doorways, one with a door, the other without. His movements were never rushed, never a scurry or frantic jolt, but he moved with purpose. And while the intent remained unclear, the promise of his effectiveness rendered a kind of threat. He returned from the open doorway with a glass of water. "Here," he offered with a jutted hand in flat affect. I reached for the glass and an involuntary sway took over. I chugged the water and gasped for breath. He took the cup from my hand and placed it on the floor, before advancing toward me. His open hands hovered in front of him, and I retracted. "Relax." He seemed annoyed, and that bothered me. It was a weird guilt. I regretted being too difficult. So I sat still. He cupped the back of my neck with one hand, the other inverted. He lightly placed it on my forehead for a moment. The next moment, the back of his fingers grazed my cheek. A shiver jolted through my extremities. His hands were ice. "You're burning up," he huffed and swiped the empty glass. He again raised and treaded to the door. Each footfall landed with a heavy thump. The door hinges creaked, followed by a successive 2 clicks of the door. One to demonstrate the door's seal, the other to engage the automatic lock. This, with the clock and its unrelenting bass line, became the chorus of the room. It was a ballad I learned well as a lullaby and a lament. It was mere moments before he returned. He knelt to my eye line and offered 2 pills he held in his hand. I mirrored the gesture. He dumped them in my hand. Quietly, I observed them. I shifted them in my palm, pale blue and oblong. The imprint code was there, but not distinguishable. Their slight weight slipped between the crease lines in my hands, and I knew that I knew those pills. I couldn't recall origin, function, or side effects, but I had held them in my hand before. He read my silent speculation as skepticism. That annoyed him, again. "They'll help with the fever and the pain." His sturdy explanation felt more like a command, which I initially would defy. "Then you can rest." He softened. So did I. I tossed the pills in my mouth as he handed over some water. I opened the disposable bottle with ease. The seal was broken. The pills caught, creating a pang in my chest. The pressure released with their slow descent, and when they finally fell, it seemed immediate. I was plagued. We moved in sync. I lowered myself down on the undressed mattress while he glided back and away from me. Neither of us broke observation of the other. His back met the wall, and he began a descent of his own. He seemed to be waiting for something. Head slightly cocked, he pressed his lips tight. I assumed it was my incapacitation, but couldn't speculate beyond that. So I fought the inevitable. For a few moments, at least. Before I drifted fully asleep, a flash of familiarity comforted me. It was not one of the 5 senses. It was something conceptual and enduring. Maybe I'll feel better when I wake up. I didn't really even know what it meant, but there was hope in it. I held tight to it as my consciousness slipped away. My eyes pried open. Night ambushed the barren space. It brought more life, though it all but stole my sight. The enveloping shadow was disrupted by a shimmering leaking from the window. I felt a heaviness on my limbs that I mistook for my own weakness. I realized the extra weight was not due to illness, but to 2 additional covers that had somehow found themselves draped over me. The sharpness in my throat dulled, but the thirst grew more prominent. Sweat had pooled on the back of my neck. There was no consideration of attempting to leave or even figure out where I was. I was reduced to my most basic, immediate instincts. I need water. I need sleep. Which one do I need more? Thirst won out. I kicked the blankets off, and despite my extreme effort, they only flared slightly off my torso. The lights flickered and flinched as I tried to focus on a single spot for balance. There wasn't much pain, presumably thanks to the medication I was given. However, A profound sense of limitation shackled me to the ground. With every movement came a deep yet ineffective heave, and I would gasp in an anoxic void. I made it to the bathroom. Couldn't tell you if I stumbled or crawled or teleported, but I made it. I lapped the water straight from the faucet until my lungs demanded refrain, but I pulled my head up too quickly. I was overcome by a tingling numbness that robbed me of my motor skills, burned my cheeks, while the rest of my body shivered. I lost strength in my arms and collapsed, splitting my bottom lip and busting my eyebrow on the counter. The numbness persisted, and the only indication I had of injury was a searing liquid dripping on the floor in front of me. My fingers grazed each wound, and I winced, out of instinct rather than genuine recoil. I retreated into the shimmering night. The next thing I know, I'm being jerked awake, a hand gripping my jaw. "Who did that to you?" His eyes blazed as his hand adjusted my profile. "What?" Grogginess burned my eyes as I snapped out of his grasp. "That! And this." He pressed his thumb against my eyebrow and then below my injured lip. I retracted. "No one." I recalled my prior night. "I fell in the bathroom." "Doing what? What? What were you doing in the bathroom?" That's a that's a weird question. "Just show me your arms." He gripped my wrists and inverted them, inspecting my arms for reasons I did not understand. He flipped my hands a few times, giving each a thorough examination, and then released me. The original hostility simmered into a peeved brooding. He huffed and got up. He did that a lot. Huffing, I mean. He was always exasperated by something, as if my presence vexed him in the most inconvenient way. Sometimes I felt guilty over this, especially in the early days when only my immediate thoughts were available. But as things became clearer, I could wonder more. Why, mostly? Why was this happening? Why did he seem to not want me, but keep me anyway? But I'm getting ahead of myself. He disappeared into the bathroom. The faucet turned on. His voice carried over the rippling water. "That's for you, by the way." "Sorry, what?" "That." He popped his head from the doorway and pointed to a brown paper takeout sack. "Pavlov's Bakery" was printed on the bag, and a glass bottle of chocolate milk stood next to it, sweating with condensation. "You need to eat," he urged. Hunger hadn't registered yet. I pulled the sack closer to me and peered inside. An oversized muffin with crumbling toppings stared back at me. Reheated, the muffin warmed the bag and emitted a pungent cinnamon. I can't eat gluten." I stuttered. The faucet shut off. "Why not?" he called, still out of sight. "I'm not supposed to?" With a dampened rag in hand, he reappeared in the doorway and scanned me. His aggression dissipated into something more cautious. "Why? What happens?" He approached me with the inquiry. I realized then that I didn't know how to answer. My instinctual response ought to be backed with experience, yet I couldn't access it. I, I don't know," I finally admitted. His tensed posture relaxed. "It's okay," he sighed. "No gluten." We entered into this kind of ongoing duel, equipped with silence and inaction. I wielded the weapon of choice as I contemplated the next move. How quickly would I believe the thin promises of a stranger? Would abidance buy me favor? Or is the immediate request of veiled danger? "Well, go on," was the only assurance he would offer. But I refused to move. "For God's sake," he huffed, Anticipating my skepticism, he grabbed the muffin from the bag and took a sizable bite. Mouth still full, he mumbled, "See? It's fine." He held it out in front of him. I accepted the offering, examining it closely before I took a bite. The burst of sweet spice erupted on my tongue, and just as quick as the tang from the in-season blueberries debuted, so did the hunger pangs. That I remember well. I'd never been that hungry before, and while I couldn't recall instances of extreme hunger, I knew the pain associated with something rather new. He interrupted my erratic and savage chomps by pulling my face to the side. He firmly swiped the damp rag across my chin a few times before scrubbing my eyebrow. "Doesn't that hurt?" he mumbled as he cleaned the blood away. "Not really." I shook my head. In returning to my devour, I lodged a dry lump in my windpipe, catalyzing a series of violent gags and coughs. Here." He handed me the bottle of chocolate milk. I unscrewed the bottle with ease and began to guzzle. I drank half the bottle when he stopped me. "Whoa, easy. Go slower." He tipped the bottle back out of my hands. I took a few more sips and set it aside. "Better?" he asked. "Yeah, thanks." His face was stone, but frustration twitched in the curl of his upper lip. His nose scrunched into a receding snarl. I worried I had angered him. He was staring at me, but not really at me, just in my direction, it seemed like. His eyes fixed just above my eyeline, and I felt a dribble of blood run down my temple. He stormed out. But instead of the still air that hung above the clock's tempo, a new verse played. One of muffled anger. One that beckoned my unsubdued curiosity. Bridled behind an industrial door, fervent complaints leaked through as indecipherable syllables. Without diction, they held no meaning, so they laid as a useless puddle of tonal assumptions. That is, until I approached. There were 3 distinct voices. I recognized only one. The other 2 were strangers. Well, I guess more stranger than the one I had encountered, if strangers have some sort of hierarchical system.
"We never guaranteed she wouldn't get hurt." "Yes, you did. Keep your voices down." "We said no one will touch her." "Make heavy implications that implications aren't binding." "You want to talk about binding? I'll show you."
Mr. Sunderson, please. This was an accident. No one hurt her. She didn't hurt herself. She is not in any more danger here than she would be anywhere else.
Yeah, that's hard to believe when I come back and she has open wounds on her face.
Keep your voices down.
Yes, you did.
Their voices grew more muffled, though I still leaned against the door. It was happening again. When I woke up, I was back on the bed, under the covers. He sat on the ground, quite far from me. "Hi." He kept his distance. Hi." He slid closer, offering another Pavlov's bag containing the same breakfast. He kept the bottle of milk further away, though. "Feel like talking today?" he asked as I accepted the bag. "Sure." "Okay." He got up and left. Impossibly confused, I stared at the doorway. A few moments passed. I decided he wasn't going to return and started eating. But the ruckus of scraping metal interrupted my first bite. He returned with a folder in his hand. He stood above me, watching as I swallowed the bite. I stared up at him and froze. Keeping my eyes on him, I indulged another bite. My action seemed to trigger his, and he nestled down off the foot of the bed. He opened the folder and began to read. With a deep inhale, "What's your name?" Uh, uh, I'm not sure. You don't know your name? No. He glanced from the page. There was a longing suspended in the air, though I couldn't quite tell if it was from me or from him. What was said, or maybe what wasn't being said, pained him. And in that pause, that brief glimpse, I saw weakness. He gulped and returned to the page. "It's Stockholm." "What?" "Your name. It's Stockholm." "That doesn't. That's not a name." "Well, apparently it is. It doesn't sound right." People called you Holmes." Yeah, I don't think so." He sighed. "Well," he jumped to his feet. "Guess you're not ready to talk." He bolted toward the door. "Wait, what? Don't leave. Come back. Please?"